You're listening to the Long Game Podcast. I'm your host, Sandra Sciano. One of my favorite quotes is, "You don't have to be who you were yesterday." This goes for mothers and business owners and anyone who has made some mistakes along their life's path, and pretty much everyone who is working on growing. These past weeks of summer, I have realized who I have become, and realized that it is actually healing that has transpired. So I'm sharing a personal story with you on the podcast this week. Back in 1980, I played rec soccer in my town. I remember the specifics about my team, the gold, really bold t-shirts we had. I wore white shorts and knee-high tube socks with the big yellow stripe on them. Another memory from those times is coming off the field at halftime. We're hot from running all over, and one of the moms passed out fresh quartered oranges. And they were always the most delicious oranges. Like, I distinctly remember these oranges, like so vibrant in color and juice. And, I loved how refreshing the flavor was, tasting different besides water. And at the time, there was like this sugary surge of vitamins that came from them when we were, in need. And I always thought those were the most amazing moms. The ones who brought oranges for the whole team. They cared for all of us in those days. Well, my mom never brought the oranges. And I kept playing soccer through the years. And as I got older, I was invited to join the travel soccer team. But I had to decline because my parents couldn't drive me everywhere. And, I'm sure there were some reasons. And, but I remember that being on the team, that wasn't even an option in my mind. And as I think back, I'm not even sure if I told my parents, I don't even know if I asked my parents about it, because I just knew they weren't driving me everywhere I needed to go, so I distinctly remember having to say no to joining. And now, this story isn't a bashing of my parents' story. It's actually taken me a long time to be able to share parts of my story that my parents, who are still alive, may hear and may not like my memories, or maybe even remember it differently and just had their reasons for why it was that way back then, right? But it's still my story. And, them isn't the focus here. It's, the fact that I still had those feelings of missing out or not being taken care of, that have lived with me all these years. And in our childhood, it isn't just one thing, right? Things get compounded over time, and it's many things. Today, though, this story, it all kind of just came together full circle. So I'm able to share this, and kind of just being left to my own devices and in this way is probably why I've excelled in business, because, I was independent at a young age. I was getting myself places. I got myself to practice, or I rode my bike to work at my first job at Carvel and rode home with bags of ice cream for everybody. But, the full circle piece, I have come full circle. Being a business owner has really been driven by a time freedom, right? A time freedom where I can take my kids wherever they need to go, whenever they need to go. I can create my schedule to accommodate that. One of my core values is that freedom equals creativity. I value the freedom in my time so that my kids can be creative in their endeavors, and so that they can really dive into their endeavors, and they don't have to worry about this heaviness or have to say no unless it's really what they want to say. So this summer has been hot. And, now I have come full circle on becoming the best mom, the most amazing mom in my childhood eyes. I now bring the fruit to the steamy summer games for the whole team. And it's funny because the first time I packed the cooler with water and ice and fruit, my daughter was like, "Don't bring that. Why are you bringing that big cooler?" And of course, her tune changed. They all loved it. And now she's always saying, don't forget, get more fruit. So you really get to choose who you become. We all have these things that we carry forward from our past, and we work to overcome. Sometimes they stay dormant for a while and then they pop back up and we work on them then, right? We are pretty much constantly always working on ourselves one way or another. And even if it's denial, like, you're still kind of working on yourself because it's there, right? So how this work manifests, well, that can be in a myriad of ways. And at any time, so even decades later, right? And a lot of times in my past work on myself, I have really focused on letting go. Like, that's a big one for me. If I can let go of the emotions, that in itself is a freedom, and a moving away from the past. And this doesn't always look pretty on the outside looking in, or even make sense to others. And it doesn't have to, right? It's your own personal journey. But there is also the ability to do things differently, things that are within your power. So it's the letting go, and then it's a rerouting of the energy and making things the way you want them to be. Creating experiences that you want to have, or you want those around you to have. Like, that is, part of moving away. You can let it go, but then you can also shift and in your actions and act differently. So for me, the driving and the fruit at games is all part of the greater healing from my childhood. I have realized that my presence in the life of my family, as I'm living it now, is very different than how it was with my parents, for me as a child. And with that comes the breaking of the cycles. You don't have to be who you were yesterday. You can be stronger now. You can be smarter now. And you can have boundaries now, and let all of this show up in your life in ways that may seem small, but really are big shifts. It took me until I was in my 40s to name and truly process some of the things that I experienced as a child. And I'm still connecting it all. One part has been release and letting go. I have moved on from having to reconcile with any individuals and have moved through to making deliberate change in my actions for the next generation, right? Like, I am stopping whatever happened because it's going to be different this time around, and as I write this, and to present, like, I realize that all this time I am healing. So, I opened up a card deck for some, inspiration, as I was working on this podcast episode, and I opened the Danielle Laporte Truth Bomb deck, and wouldn't you know it, the top card on the deck, right as I opened it, was people heal in big, bold letters. So, the universe, you are always working your ways, right? But it's true. We are healing beings, and we are able to make decisions, account for our actions, and be deliberate in ways that are different than what we have experienced. So thanks for listening and letting me share more of my story here and more of myself here. Our stories are who we are, and our processing of them, of those stories, is who we become. So I wish you all a great week of insight. Thanks for joining me today. You can access more information, links mentioned in this episode, and the show notes at thelonggamepodcast.net. If today's show connected with you in some way, please share it with your friends or hop on and leave a review. Both of these make a really big difference. All right, until next time, keep playing the long game.